Howdy do. My innards are making all kinds of groaning noises. Don't know why. I fed it. I fed them lasagna. Okay, I was getting so sleepy last night. I don't even know if I know exactly where I left off. I should have checked. Okay. They were at the school, and he was talking about the Robinson Crusoe, right? Robin Crusoe. Robinson. Let's see. Yeah, I think the last... I'll go back and read these 2 paragraphs. I think this is kind of where we were. What's the matter? Asked the spirit. Nothing, said Scrooge, nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all. The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so, let's see another Christmas. And you know, when they show this, a lot of differences between the book and movies, and differences even between versions of the movie, but Fan did come, didn't she? Did she? Oh, I can't remember. But I was thinking, she knows my brain is such a muddled mass of junk. Oh well, anyway, hopefully y'all know what I said. Let us see another Christmas. Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked. I read this too. Fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked laths were shown instead. Yeah, I did. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, that there he was, alone again when all the other boys... Oh, okay, so he's still at school. I know, 'cause I read this before, and that's why I'm all mixed up. There we go. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, I've gotten stuff so mixed up, buddy. When all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays, he was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly, and this is another Christmas, he said. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, and putting her arms about his neck, and kissing him, addressed him as her dear, dear brother. I have come to bring you home, dear brother, said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh, to bring you home, home, home. Home, little Fan? Returned the boy. Yes, said the child, brimful of glee. Home for good and all. Home for ever and ever. Father's so much kinder than he used to be that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man, said the child, opening her eyes, and are never to come back here. But first we're to be together all the Christmas long, and have the merriest time in all the world. You're quite a woman, little Fan, exclaimed the boy. She clapped her hands and laughed, and tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again, and stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him, in her childish eagerness, towards the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her. A terrible voice in the hall cried, Bring down Master Scrooge's box there. and in the hall appeared the schoolmaster himself, who glared on Master Scrooge with a ferocious condescension and threw him into a dreadful state of mind by shaking hands with him. He then conveyed him and his sister into the veriest old well of a shivering best parlor that ever was seen, where the maps upon the wall and the celestial and terrestrial globes in the windows were waxy with cold. Here he produced a decanter of curiously light wine, and a block of curiously heavy cake, and administered installments of those dainties to the young people, at the same time sending out a meager servant to offer a glass of something to the postboy, who answered that he thanked the gentleman, but if it was the same tap as he had tasted before, he had rather not. Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied onto the top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster good-bye right willingly, and getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoar-frost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray. Always a delicate creature whom a breath might have withered, said the ghost, but she had a large heart. So she did, cried Scrooge. You're right. I will not gainsay it, spirit. God forbid. She died a woman, said the ghost, and had, as I think, children. One child, Scrooge returned. True, said the ghost, your nephew. Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind and answered briefly, yes. Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were... I missed a thing. That didn't sound right. Shadowy carts and coaches battle for the way. No, I said that. Oh, I need to sleep. And all the strife and tumult of a real city were, it was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops, that here too it was Christmas time again. but it was evening and the streets were lighted. I'm just laughing because I'm so damn goofy. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. If y'all felt this pain and I'm about to pass out from my feet hurting. Might as well laugh as to cry, right? I gotta get something for these things. Oh, Lordy. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Again, the ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. Know it? Said Scrooge, I was apprenticed here. They went in at the sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, and sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller he must have knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement, Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's old Fezziwig alive again. Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, Yo-ho there! Ebenezer! Dick! Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow apprentice. Dick Wilkins, to be sure, said Scrooge to the ghost. Bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick, dear, dear. Yo-ho, my boys, said Fezziwig. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up, cried old Fezziwig with a sharp clap of his hands. before a man can say Jack Robinson. You wouldn't believe how those two fellas went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters, 1, 2, 3, had them up in their places, 4, 5, 6, barred them and pinned them, 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like racehorses. "Hi-ho!" cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hi-ho, Dick! Cheer up, Ebenezer!" Clear away, there was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor was swept and watered. The lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. In came the boy from over the way, who was suspected of not having board enough from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from next door but one, who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress. And they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling, and they all came anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couples at once. Hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place. New top couple starting off again as soon as they got there. All top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" And the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose, but scorning rest upon his reappearance, he instantly began again, though there were no dancers yet, as if the other fiddlers had been carried home, exhausted. Midnight at the Oasis. I love that song. No dancers yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home exhausted on a shutter, and he were a brand new man resolved to beat him out of sight or perish. There were more dances, and then there were forfeits, and many dances, and there was cake, and there was negus. I think I'll look that up, but I can't. No, I don't remember what it is. Negus. Let's see what it says. Yeah, negus. Originally named after Colonel Francis Negus, died 1732. It's a hot drink of port, sugar, lemon, and spices. And it says negus. Yeah, maybe it's supposed to be negus. I guess that's it. Hang on just a second. Yeah, that's all it says. Okay, how do I get out here? Here we go. Negus. And there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there was mince pies and plenty of beer, but the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, and in parentheses it says, an artful dog mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told it him. Struck up, and this is the name of a song, Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig, top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them. 3 or 24 pair of partners, people who were not to be trifled with, people who would dance and had no notion of walking. But if they had been thrice as many, 4 times, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. If that's not high praise, tell me higher and I'll use it. A positive light appeared to issue that from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would have become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, both hands to your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again to your place. Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs, and came upon his feet again without a stagger. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually, as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired but the 2 prentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene and with his former self. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick were turned from them, that he remembered the ghost and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burnt very clear. "A small matter," said the ghost, "to make these silly folks so full of gratitude." "Small," echoed Scrooge. The spirit signed to him to listen to the 2 apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig, and when he had done so, and when he had done so, said, "Why is it not he has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps? Is that so much that he deserves this praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self. "It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks and things so slight and insignificant that it's impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What's the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing in particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think," the ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all." His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit. "Quick!" This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect. For again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of his life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of the fair young girl in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly, "to you very little. Anonymous." Now that has been... Wait a minute. Did I say anonymous? I'm making up stuff again. "Shone out a ghost of Christmas past. It matters little," she said softly, "to you very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve." And y'all, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to start reading crazy stuff. Yeah, because it's still quite a bit. All right. Y'all be sweet. Don't be ugly. And hope to see you at 3 next 2 days over the weekend. Remember, we have a giveaway on Sunday. Love y'all bunches. Bye-bye.